Trump's back. Trump has made his glorious return and announced that he will, in fact, be running for president in 2024, something I'm sure we were all expecting to happen, but it's still very welcome news nonetheless.
Is it? I mean, not if you want Republicans to win. It's going to tear apart the Republican Party.
It might tear apart the
also
Republican Party.
He's going to damage the chances of Ron DeSantis.
Will it?
Yeah, because he's already come up with a nickname for Ron DeSantis. He calls him Ron DeSanctimonious.
Well, I do disagree.
Which doesn't make any sense, because he's not he's the opposite.
I was speaking about this earlier on this week. I don't like Trump buying into the divisiveness, but still, Trump is one of the only people who's really anti-establishment, who's going to put himself for the front runner of the Republican Party, so I still support that aspect of him being the only one who is willing and able to really go against the media and really go against a lot of narratives.
I disagree with the anti-establishment thing. I think it's something that he's spun.
Even
this guy's a billionaire. This guy's like a long-term donor. Sorry, I shouldn't derail your segment.
No. It's an interesting discussion. Just because he was part of the establishment, you could say, doesn't mean that it's not telling that the entire establishment comes out against him whenever he does anything. And you can say he's part of the establishment, but the man has had a raid at Mar-a-Lago. The man has been through 2 impeachments. The man has had his name dragged through the mug.
People are part of the establishment. Often, come across. I mean, look at the Ceausescus. They were executed, and they were part of the establishment.
Yeah, but the Ceausescus were bad guys.
Yeah.
Yeah. Trump.
Look, man, I love Trump.
For all his flaws, he's not a bad guy.
There's nobody funnier than Donald Trump. There's nobody I love hearing his voice more. From a pure entertainment perspective, I think he's amazing. But I don't think he's lost it. I mean, the midterm showed he's lost his power.
Certainly some of the people that he was backing were not great. Dr. Oz, for instance, was an incredibly milquetoast, I've repeated it before, basically a mid-2000s Democrat candidate going against John Fetterman, who, despite the fact that he can't talk, that seems to be a benefit nowadays for Democrat politicians. If you can't talk, great, all the better to just repeat the slogans.
Hasn't hurt Biden too much, being unable to talk or function as a human being.
Yeah, it keeps the people pulling the actual strings, it makes their job easier, I suppose. But yes, Donald Trump has decided that he's going to throw his hat into the race after there was some doubt over whether he would, given the Republicans' rather disappointing results in the midterms. They were expecting a red wave. Instead, it seemed to be more of a red fizzle. People like Ron DeSantis did get massive gains from the midterms, but other places were not as good. Before we go any further, though, I would like to draw your attention to a recent premium video that came out with Connor and Josh talking about the politics of the film Nightcrawler. And this is particularly important right now because it's actually quite a decent example of how the news media manipulates events that happen to try and sell you a particular narrative. And that is something that is going to be happening for the next 2 years now that he's announced that he's going to be running in 2024. And it's just a reminder that most of everyone working in the media, barring our upstanding selves, of course, is a psychopathic gremlin like Lou in Nightcrawler who's lying to you. So check that out if you'd like some more in-depth analysis of that particular film. It's very, very good stuff. But anyway, so Donald Trump last night, on the 14th, as was supposed to happen, as he said he would, made a full speech, a full announcement that he was going to be running for the President of the United States again in 2024. And there was a certain understatedness to this that I found watching through the whole thing, which was that Trump did not come out entirely with the bluster. There was plenty of the Trumpisms, there was plenty of the terribly sad, it's going to be terrific, all that sort of stuff. But he wasn't coming out shouting, he wasn't coming out all guns blazing or anything, because he knows if he's up against Biden, all he needs to really do is show that he can form a coherent sentence. And if he can do it once, multiple times in a row, just to really slam dunk on Biden, really.
What's his track record of winning elections against Biden?
It's not great, but it doesn't help when you've got...
Is it 1-0?
It is 1-0 at the moment, but it doesn't help when you've got the entirety of the news media establishment against you and a sizable faction of your own party who are trying to maintain the establishment line still working against you as well. I mean, we had the Lincoln Project who were supposedly patriotic Republicans. Well, it might do. They are looking to try and drain the swamp, but he did manage to beat the odds back in 2016 when everybody was still telling him that there was no chance he was going to be able to run against someone like Hillary. So he's got a track record of going against the odds before as well.
He's won one election.
He has won one election. So has Biden. So we'll see.
Well, Biden's been, been part of victories as vice president.
Okay.
And
yeah, but that was Barack Obama winning the election, though.
Yeah, but Trump has won.
And also, we do have at this point 2 years of almost 2 years of Biden's presidency, which has not been looking great. And in fact, most of what he did during this speech was talk about how great things were comparatively under him, talk about how bad things are under Biden. We've seen Biden's approval ratings. They're not great. The midterms did not turn out a great result for the Republicans, but they also didn't turn out a great result for the Democrats. Even if it wasn't as good for the Republicans as it could have been, the Democrats still made losses on that. They're no longer in control of the House of Representatives, for instance. All right, but moving on. So he was talking about a lot of things throughout this, like around 20 minutes in, he's mentioning focus on climate change rather than the threat of nuclear war, which the Democrats are eager to be pushing. He wants America first, prioritizing American business and fair trade markets, yada, yada, yada. He's talking about a lot of things that American people want to hear. They want to hear that their jobs are being put first rather than offshoring a lot of business. They want to hear that energy concerns are going to be addressed. They want to basically hear that they're going to repeal 2 years of democratic incompetence. And he ended the whole thing off with rather a good moment, one of the only moments where he really sort of got a bit more heated and got the whole crowd behind him. This was a good way to end off the speech, I thought.
America's golden age is just ahead, and together we will make America powerful again.
Mappa.
We will make America wealthy again.
Mawa.
We will make America strong again.
Ooh, massa.
We will make America proud again. We will make America safe again. We will make America glorious again. And we will make America great again. Thank you very much. God bless you all. Thank you.
So he made that speech at Mar-a-Lago, so he's obviously got the crowd stacked in his favour there. But it is still good to see the inspiration that he can give to people to just we want the country to be great again, we want it to be glorious again, all those good things which Biden has certainly not excelled at, even though he likes to fudge numbers and say, oh, I've increased more jobs than ever, despite the fact that they were coming off of the pandemic, which loads of people lost their jobs in. It's really easy to make up those sorts of figures when you're coming out of a pandemic and an economic disaster, and then immediately push the country into potentially another economic disaster. Trump made a lot of policy announcements for what he would be doing as well there, saying that, for one, potentially the most controversial one for a lot of people would be that he just explicitly called that if he was going to be made president again, he would call for the execution of drug dealers, saying, going to be asking everyone who sells drugs, gets caught selling drugs, to receive the death penalty for their heinous acts because it's the only way. I don't even know if the American public is ready for it. And he referred to Xi Jinping's China as a good example of this working. So
this is the anti-establishment candidate.
Well, potentially
wanting to give police loads of power to execute people,
as opposed to giving the police loads of power to not do anything and hand out aids for taking drugs in cities like San Francisco and other places.
As a libertarian, I prefer to make my own choices.
Well, I'm a bit mixed on that whole idea as well, just because I don't know how effective it would be given that the war on drugs, which I'm not too clued up on, but as far as I'm aware, the popular opinion seems to be the war on drugs has been a massive waste of money and hasn't really shown any successes. So there are some things there, I'm not always into everything that Trump is doing.
Yeah.
I just prefer him to the candidates and the Democratic establishment that we've got now.
He's a lot more fun.
Oh, certainly he's a lot more fun. And like I say, it is refreshing to hear someone who seems to understand what language they're speaking. And but they have tried to impeach him twice. He keeps coming back. Fox News reported on this and also reported a lot saying about some of the more controversial aspects of his ended presidency, the end of his first term, including talking about things like the claims of the such. That's Trump's words, not mine. I'm not going to make any comment on something like that. But this article does include a lot of positives about what America had under Trump, talking about the economy was strong under Trump's presidency, an increase in middle-class family income, lowest unemployment rate in half a century, and unprecedented job growth. Stock market hitting record highs. Trump worked to cut red tape and reduce regulations for American businesses and workers. All of these positive things.
And controlling immigration. Controlling immigration was a huge thing, and it's interesting that some of the things that the Democrats really criticised when Trump was in power, such as building the border wall and really clamping down on illegal immigration, they've just quietly continued with, because it turns out they're actually really good ideas. And now that illegal immigration has surged, they're really having to implement Trump's policies the way he wanted them. And you can see with things like energy sovereignty. So he warned Germany that a reliance on Russian gas was dangerous.
Well, he mentions that in the speech. He was talking about, I think it was like 75% of all of Germany's gas was coming from Russia. And he said, I warned them back in the day. I said, this is going to really screw you over when it comes down the line. And
they
it has.
Openly laughed at him.
Yeah, I remember reading about that at the time. Yeah, they were just like, oh, you're crazy, Trump. Nothing's ever going to happen. Geopolitics is always known for its stability, Trump.
Deals with dictators never go wrong.
Yeah, but there's once again plenty to criticize Trump over. For one, I would say you could criticize his response to the COVID pandemic, going along with locking people down and allowing all the stimulus checks and all that sort of stuff. But here are the policies that he put forward, some of the other ones that Connor, my good colleague, happily put out on his own Twitter, along with some suggestions for other policies that he could put forward. So these were the ones: reinstate and back pay all unemployed by Biden's vaccine mandates. Potentially that would be a good one. Election reform, same-day paper ballots only, voter ID and signature verification. So this would be there to tackle. And even beyond that, I don't know if you've seen in the midterms, there was.
I'm not saying there's any.
He also put forward the idea of congressional term limits, ban on congressmen and their families using insider knowledge to trade stocks, Pelosi, for instance, which could be very beneficial to try and reduce the ability of career politicians to manipulate their positions to benefit themselves and themselves only. Return of protectionist trade policies against China, death penalty for drug dealers, as I mentioned.
China.
Yeah, and Connor had some other suggestions for Team Trump, which was, number one, ban TikTok, which would actually go pretty well hand in hand with the protectionist against China.
And they're talking about doing that. I think even under the Democrats, they're talking about doing that, because it's created by the Chinese Communist Party to sow degeneracy and poison the nation's youth, the West's youth.
Yeah, and you just need to look at the West and how many of the youth are getting all of these ideas off of TikTok to see that.
And if you look at TikTok in China, it's all like algebra and family values. It's a completely different platform.
Oh, if only we had Chinese TikTok, eh? And he also suggests no federal grants or contracts for companies using ESG scores. This would, of course, cut the knees off of the World Economic Forum and BlackRock being able to enforce wokeism to companies.
Great idea.
He suggested tax breaks for US citizens having children, and I amended this somewhat, and he did tweet out my amendment, which was married US citizens having children, because otherwise you might just be encouraging single motherhood and people having as many children as possible to just get the benefits of it rather than actually have rather than raise the children because you want to raise a good family. So that could be a good adaptation there. Mass incarceration of BLM rioters. Well, I mean, they have still got a lot of people from Jan 6 incarcerated under trespassing charges. So applying those rules fairly there.
Instead of having a two-tier justice system.
Yeah, indict the Department of Homeland Security, the Department of Justice, and Hunter Biden. That explains itself. Abolish the... This is where we're getting into sort of some of the libertarian elements of Connor's thinking right here. Abolish the Federal Reserve and Department of Education. Well, I mean, they're both just captured institutions, really, and the Federal Reserve was never a good idea. Dismiss the officer who killed Ashley Babbitt on January 6th and a condolence payment to her family. I mean, that makes sense. And then mass pardons for Jan 6. This is just Connor's wishful thinking here. And reparations from China for the Wuhan lab leak, which, once again, is just up in the air. But it's hard for the average working voter to not see the appeal of Trump. And this was something that came out the other day when Dave Chappelle appeared on Saturday Night Live. Did you see this clip?
Yeah.
Yeah, this fantastic clip. Dave Chappelle of all people, put forward the genius reason why it is that people love Trump so much, and just play the clip. It's the most succinct explanation of why Trump was so popular in the first place that I have ever seen.
Yeah.
And the fact that it happened on Saturday Night Live of all people, can you imagine the producers screeching behind the scenes?
Loads of writers walked out. They refused to take part in that episode, which is why it was one of the funniest episodes.
That makes sense. I mean, Dave Chappelle's been very controversial on a number of topics recently, and something as woke as Saturday Night Live must have been furious. But speaking of the furious media, immediately everybody starts to come out and hit out against it. Joe Biden felt the need to just tweet out, well, his social media manager, intern, felt the need to tweet out, Donald Trump failed America, with this lovely little propaganda video saying that he basically attacked Democratic policies, which were definitely going to work. Affordable Health Care Act, I assume, was about as effective as the Inflation Reduction Act at doing what it was stated to try and do. So, you can just ignore that sort of thing. Jen Psaki chimed in because Donald Trump is still under investigation for the Mar-a-Lago stuff for his potential mishandling of public records after he left the office. And Jen Psaki, in a tweet, felt the need to come out and say, John, if you don't mind moving to the next one, please. Thank you. For anyone who needs to hear this, Trump announced he's running for president, does not have a legal impact on investigations. No one at the Department of Justice watched that speech and ripped up all the work they have been pursuing. Nobody expected them to, Jen. We know that for the next 2 years, the smear machine is going to go into absolute overdrive. So if anything, I'm sure the Department of Justice has decided to kick it up a notch in their investigation to try and find anything and everything. So,
and it's not a good look for the Democrats to be raiding his home and to be pursuing, such an obvious two-tier system where anything that anybody on the right does is scrutinised and jumped on and pushed. They try and push it, like get them on anything. Whereas anybody on the left, or Antifa or whatever, or Black Lives Matter rioters or whatever, it's completely
they're able to go out and destroy cities and do whatever they want. Hillary Clinton can mishandle any information that she wants with no pushback.
Hunter Biden laptop scandal, that just completely gets suppressed. And I think when people talk about elections being stolen, they mean that rather than actual falsified votes. The Hunter Biden laptop scandal could have really tipped the election.
Yeah, and then we got the nonce defenders at the Lincoln Project out in force saying, tonight as you watch an orange-smeared circus clown gear up to take another stab at ending our democracy. Remember this, when the Republican Party had a choice between Trump or America, they chose Trump over and over and over again. I don't know what that means other than they want to destroy our democracy, and I don't think anybody takes that phrase seriously anymore. Occupy Democrats decided to say that Liz Cheney saying that he won't be president again means that I guess we just won. Democrats win. Liz Cheney said that she doesn't like Donald Trump. Oh, great. Break out the champagne, boys. Dances on Donald Trump's political grave. It must have accidentally been some kind of resurrection dance because he's back in full force. NPR immediately went into propaganda shill mode, and the New York Times exploded. They absolutely exploded because in the same morning they came out with not one, not two, not three. Move to the next link for me, please, John. Not four, not five, but six. 6 articles, all in the same morning, about how Trump is evil, how Trump is going to try and destroy America. We don't need to let Trump play the underdog. Trump is finally finished. Yada, 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 yada. But this is what we expect. But as Leo mentioned, we know that there's going to be massive pushback, not just from all of this, but because of the fact that they just admitted immediately after the 2020 election, after Biden was signed in, that the secret history of the shadow campaign that saved the 2020 election. There are dark, dark forces at work right now that are going to make sure that whatever America wants, it doesn't get.
Yeah. And also, I mean, like, people talk about elections being bought. It used to be people on the left who complained about, so the Republicans were in the pocket of big business and stuff. Now it's completely flipped, and the Democrats vastly outspend Republicans on elections.
I'm sure the left back then were probably right that a lot of Republicans were in the pocket of big business. The problem was, for them, not that that happened in the first place, just that it wasn't them getting all of the money at the time. That's the problem. I'll apply your principles to you, but then when it comes to me, mate, everything's on the table.
Rules for thee, but not for me.
And one of the interesting things that came out recently that was covered yesterday on the podcast with Dan and Callum was the corruption with the FTX. Did you hear about this? office.
Yeah, I mean,
that
it's
was
basically
ridiculous.
and it's mad that it collapsed like basically sort of the day after the election.
I know.
And then, you know, I mean, the timing couldn't be more perfect, but they're funneling funds back to the Democrat Party.
Yeah, so just a very quick cliff notes to end this segment off. You should really go and check this out because Dan did a very good job explaining all of this. But basically what was happening, FTX is just another crypto coin run by this man on the left here, a Sam Bankman, who was running the whole thing. He's a massive Dem donor. So what was happening was the Democrats were taking taxpayer money, sending it off to Ukraine in the form of all of these donations. They've got, you know, billions of dollars at a time. And then Ukraine was taking some of that money and investing by buying some of FTT, the crypto coin that FTX was selling. And then, of course, the profits made from all of that were going straight back to Sam Bankman, who was then giving all of that money back to the Dems. So it's a ridiculous Ponzi scheme
and we're
going
talking
on.
huge amounts of money.
Huge amounts of money. And also, as soon as all of this started to come out, as soon as FTX started to collapse, all of a sudden, the customer funds, the public funds that were being used to buy all of these coins, suddenly started to get drained by unknown people through some back door that had been implemented in the whole system. So a massive corruption scandal, all on behalf of the Democrats. Remember, Donald Trump gets impeached over one phone call with Zelensky. The Democrats then used Zelensky and this guy to funnel taxpayer money back round to fund their own campaigns. Not a peep. Not an absolute peep. So as controversial as he is, as much as there might be some pushback against it, Trump coming back is very interesting, and we'll see where it goes, because at the very least, what you can say is he cares about America, and he wants it to succeed.
If you appreciated that segment from the podcast of the Lotus Eaters, you can go to lotuseaters.com to get access to all the premium content we have on the site, such as the premium videos we do, this one on the psychology of the Silence of the Lambs. And if you'd like to find out what else we're putting out, you can follow us on Getter at lotuseaters_com on Getter. Thank you and goodbye.